All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's VBio Berufsfeld Infoabend. I don't have a really catchy name for that format in English yet. So today it's going to be about coordinating research, and welcome Svenja and Elizabeth. Thanks a lot for your time and that you came. I'm not going to introduce you any further because, I mean, that's what you're here for. I'm Simon Häusler from VBio, from the Munich office, and I'm going to quickly introduce the German Life Science Association to you. So VBio stands for Verband Biologie, Biowissenschaften und Biomedizin in Deutschland. So in brief and in English, this would be German Life Science Association. We are a non-profit umbrella organization for all scientists in the life sciences. We do ensure quality standards in studies and careers. We do try to improve research conditions. We do advise politicians and organize teacher trainings and free online courses like this one. We are politically, ideologically, and economically independent. Economically, we are dependent on our members' membership, also the fees. So if you're interested, for PhD students and students also in their bachelor and master, it's only 35 euros a year. So the upcoming webinars, just the next two. I'm sorry, there's two mistakes on this slide. So it's so the next one is Wednesday, February. Wait. I need to look this up. I'm really sorry. So it's going to be 19th of February, scientific writing. The title is correct. So a scientific editor and coach is going to tell you things about scientific writing, about how to do a PhD thesis, and all the things that can motivate or make you procrastinate. If you need help with this, come join this webinar on Wednesday, 19th of February. And the next one is then Wednesday, 5th of March, Einstieg in Pharma. It's a cooperation with another association, and there are very prominent guests. One thing, if you're looking for a job currently and you want to have a perspective, there's a book called Perspektiven, which is basically perspectives in German, and it's only available in German though. You can order this through our website. There's roughly 100 CVs in print. People wrote their CVs for us, how they got into the jobs and what their career ways, where they went, how they went there, and it's very open and well written, I think. And it's only 1680 or a free welcome gift for our new members. So check out VBio.de, become a member of VBio, because we represent your interests in Germany and you can support us through your membership. And with this, I would like to hand over to Svenja. Welcome again, and I'm really looking forward to your talk.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, and hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today, so thanks for the occasion. I will share my screen now. And yeah, you should see it now.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And one more thing, so we are gonna use the F&A function to collect all your questions. We're gonna have a very brief F&A session with Svenja, then Elizabeth is gonna present hers, and then we're gonna have one big round of questions. So whenever you find a question that you're also interested in, just hit the like button and we will prioritize the questions accordingly. All right.
Yeah, so I would like to start my talk soon, but first of all, again wanted to thank you, Simon, for this event. I have to admit, I'm a bit nervous. I didn't give a talk since some time, as you will see in a few minutes, due to my, a bit not so straight career path. And so especially for that, thank you, Simon, that I was asked for this, or maybe even because of this not so straight line in my career. And you will see this in a minute. And I'm also very happy to meet Elisabeth here again, because actually the three of us have been at LMU Munich for a parallel phase in the past. And Elisabeth, I don't know if you know, but when I met you there, I always thought, oh, that's a nice job you're doing there, and what you do and how you do. And back then, I already thought sometimes I could imagine also doing this. So this is very funny that we meet here now again. And so today I am a scientific coordinator. And I also did something else on the way, and I will let you through this now. So my talk will be, first of all, an overview over my education and career path, so over my CV. And then I will go into detail with my 3 professional stations I had on the way. So first of all, you see I did my high school diploma in 2008. And then I started, so I come from south of Munich, and then after school I moved to Munich and studied biology there. I did my bachelor and my master. And then I had a small gap where I thought about what will I do now, and then the opportunity came up to continue with my master project in a joint lab project from LMU and Helmholtz-Zentrum Munich. So I did my PhD for 3 years. And this, I wanted to mention this already here. I did this not on a stipendium, but I was, I had a normal position, I think very common for PhD positions, with social insurance, which will become important at my next step. So I wanted to already mention that here. What I did then after finishing my PhD, I opened a bar in Berlin together with my sister. And I will go into detail with all the projects. So here at the moment, just this information. Another step or position I had in between or in parallel to this project was a part-time employment at the Stifterverband in Berlin, where I worked as a program manager. Then in my CV follows a parental leave. I put this in, what do we say this, Anführungszeichen, because it was not really a leave because I was the whole time self-employed. I had, of course, I did less, but I always worked also at that time. And then in last year in March, I started my current position as a scientific coordinator at the Charité Berlin. At the moment, this is also a part-time position because I started this when I was still running the bar. We sold it in August last year. So yes. And I already wanted to include here 2 information, because when you look at this, you might think already on what money did you live. So starting this project, owning a bar or running an own bar was, of course, not always easy financially. In the beginning, I financed myself with a startup grant from the employment agency. I will go into detail into this later. So this worked out for me. And what I was also very happy about, that when I learned that you can also get this parental leave benefit when you are self-employed. I gave birth to my daughter when I still could use this program management employment time, but I could also bring into account that I earned money here in self-employment, and I was able to get this money even I hadn't had a real contract at that time and was just self-employed. So yeah, this is the overview over my career path. And I, of course, want to give you more details now on each step because they are very different. And I decided to start with the second point because this was more of a job for me to earn some money on the side and to have some financial stability. And I also just did it for 2 years. So I just start with this to have it very quickly. And then I will tell you a lot about how it is to run a bar. And then in the end, of course, I want to focus today on scientific coordination. So I was a program manager at the Stifterverband. This is a non-profit organization based in Essen and Berlin, which is kind of at the intermediate of public and private sector. So they are supporting educational projects and advising politics and also get into bring all stakeholders together from businesses, from universities, politics, and the public sector. And the conditions from my position were it was a 50% position based on the collective wage agreement, but it was not a real Tarifvertrag. And the skills I learned there were project management, which was actually really nice. So although the whole area was not really my cup of tea, but I really enjoyed learning stuff about project management. They worked a lot or tried out a lot at that time with this new work approach. I really enjoyed that. We had a very young team, no hierarchies, so this was quite nice. I learned a lot. I was able to peek into the background of public funding structures. Our project, the project I worked on was BMBF funded. I learned some things also, of course, during my bar time, but also here about community and event management, because we were organizing some networking events all the time. Yeah, I wanted to put here that I also learned salary negotiations. Well, it didn't really turn out so well in my case. I mean, I was there for 2 years, and after the first year, I tried to negotiate my salary to get a bit more. I learned in this time that the Works Council, the Betriebsrat, really is your friend. So I first had the negotiation meeting with my boss. And yeah, I was really naive and just asked for, can I get a bit more money? And he was like, yeah, you have to negotiate more and tell me more. And I was a bit taken off guard. But yeah, afterwards, I contacted the Betriebsrat just to learn a bit, to get some advice, and they really helped me. It didn't, so I just got a very small raise in the end. I also was not happy after that anymore because then I also knew what the Betriebsrat told me, where I was. They not really told me what my direct colleagues earned, of course, but they kind of told me in which range I was. And yeah, as I said, I was a bit naive. That wasn't my main focus job at that time. It was, of course, being self-employed with the bar. But I learned maybe the hard way that when you don't have this Tarifverträge, you really have to also look after yourself and fight for your salaries and for your money. That's what I wanted to tell you about this 2-year position that, as I told you, was not so important in my life. Now I come to my bar project, and first of all, wanted to tell you how I came to this decision. What was our motivation to do this? During my PhD, I really noticed I wasn't so much into research that that world would be enough for me. That was how I sensed it. I already sometimes worked in a bar, and I really enjoyed this leaving the ivory tower and the academic bubble and meeting all different kinds of people there. So I really enjoyed that. And I thought after my PhD, I would like to peek into a different world. And yeah, that was a big motivation. I wanted to live the dream together with my sister. So we did this, the two of us. And yeah, I think many of you can maybe relate to that. I think many people have this moment in their life where they say, oh, opening a bar or a cafe would be nice. And we did the same. And I think if I would have been alone, I would have never done it. But together with my sister, we had several moments where we were like, why not? And let's just do it and let's just try it. And then we met at some point in a phase of our lives where this end of the education was near. So she was doing her master and I was doing my PhD. And we were like, okay, in 1 year, we both are finished with that and maybe we just try it. Yeah, and we really wanted to try this, manage our own business. That was a big motivation, and really trying if we could make a living on our own with an own business. Then after this, we made this decision. We started preparing already during our last education steps. So I started this bar job where I wanted to learn. So I started in a small bar, something that also we were imagining doing. And I tried to learn as much as I can. And also the money I earned there was saved as a start capital for our project. And then I decided to go to the Agentur für Arbeit, the employment agency, after I finished my PhD. I was so happy to be financed until I really finished writing. So I finished writing, my contract ended, and then I went to the employment agency and applied for some help. And there I have to say I was very lucky because so later I had to go to another guy at the Agentur für Arbeit when I moved to Berlin. Like we did our bar in Berlin then. So I applied for these support still in Munich. And I met a guy there, the responsible person for me, who found this also a very good idea, actually. So he decided to support me. The guy who was responsible for me later in Berlin said he would never have done this and he would have tried to really put me into a real job, you know, with social insurance and all that. But yeah, the guy in Munich liked the idea. His motivation was also that he told me that there are many biologists after who are finishing their PhD. Many of them maybe still are writing. Many of them don't know yet what to do. So many of the biologists he was responsible for were unemployed for a very long time. And since I came there, the first meeting we had and told him, I'm very motivated, I want to start this right away. He said he likes this and he's sure he can get me faster out of this unemployment status than maybe many other biologists who don't have any idea yet. So he paid or decided that I could go to a startup course, which was very helpful. It was a 2-week course where you just learn the basics about being self-employed, so bookkeeping, writing a business plan, applying for bank credits and stuff like this, insurances, like a 2-week overview over these topics. And he also gave me a startup grant that's called Gründungszuschuss der Agentur für Arbeit. If any of you is also thinking about doing something like this, you can look that up. That was really helpful. This only works when you have been in a social insurance contract for at least 2 years and when you are allowed to get Arbeitslosengeld, ALG, what is it? ALG 1, yeah, genau. Then you are eligible to get this startup grant, which basically covers your life costs for another half a year, and then even for a whole year, your health insurance and stuff like this. That was really helpful at the beginning. Yeah. And what we also did, we were writing a business plan to make our concept, and we were also trying to get a bank loan. I actually forgot to prepare this. I wanted to cross that out because in the end it was then a private loan what we get. The banks, no bank wanted to give us money for that idea, but we managed to collect a little in our private surroundings and got a loan which we were able to pay back in time, so at least this worked out. Yeah, then we moved to Berlin. We decided we wanted to do it there and not in Munich, where the surroundings, in our opinion, were much harder. Everything was more expensive, and yeah, you just don't find a shop you can rent. So we moved to Berlin. A friend of mine designed this logo. We thought about a name. We wrote the concept. We found a place. And we opened in October 2018. And yeah, had a very good time in the beginning. We were doing our thing there, running the bar. We were also doing some science communication events. So here you see me. This was one recording actually in the Berlin Science Week scope, where we did a science slam on stage of our bar. I chose the picture that you see a little also how the place looked. And yeah, we did a few events also in this direction to still be connected to the scientific world a little. And yeah, in the beginning, everything worked out quite well. So here you see the turnover. This is just a turnover. This is not what was left in the end after our expenses, but the turnover in the beginning was quite good. So we had a very good first and second year. But then you all know it, Corona hit. So that was really bad. We were so lucky at least that we were open for 1.5 years already. So we were allowed to get this Corona support money. For younger businesses, this was not eligible. So you had to be open for at least 1 year. So at least we got this money. But yeah, it was a hard time, of course. All the lockdowns, instability, but we tried to get over it. The Corona money, support money really helped, of course. It still only covered 80% of our expenses. Yeah, which was also a learning in that time when you are self-employed. Yeah, we were all asking ourselves, why do we get 80%? How should we get the rest of the 20% of our expenses? We always had to pay the full rent, of course, and yeah, it wasn't easy, but we were still motivated. We managed to get through. We used the time to make a Start Next campaign to get more money for a neighbor and friend of the bar who opened a Gambian restaurant, like a shop-in-shop in our bar, which was a nice project and also worked out quite nicely. And then we started to recover a little bit, but then the inflation really, yeah, it was really hard. So although it looks like the money was incoming, it was all eaten up by the expensive. The rent was getting higher and higher. Personal costs, like we always had a small team working there. So it was just a lot. And I'm a bit under the impression now of this hard end phase. So until the mid of the time, it was a really nice thing. But here on the way, after 6 years, or this was 5 years doing it, we decided this is enough now with this project. We wanted to try out this adventure in gastronomy. I also had a daughter in 2022, where, of course, perspectives also changed a lot. And yeah, so in 2024, then we sold our bar. But it was a really good time. And also, I never thought about that in the beginning. I always feared that although it would be a fun time, it might not look very advantageous in my CV. But it turned out that it wasn't that bad, actually. And also the job I have now, they really liked what I did. And I didn't look for this position for a long time, because this phase in my CV was very much cherished in the job world. And yeah, so I composed here some skills I really learned in that time, and that was being my own boss. Also, I never thought about that, but the uncle of my partner, he's also self-employed, and he told me, like, he's at the end of his career and has been self-employed the whole time. He also has a shop. And he told me he always noticed that when people have been self-employed before, they are way better as employees because they understand on another level what a leader, what a boss maybe needs and cherishes. So yeah, this I think is really something that you can get out of this. I learned running a business. I learned being self-employed, so I have some skills that maybe a pure academic doesn't have. So I learned bookkeeping, hiring and leading a team. We had a tax audit, stuff like this. So yeah, a lot of economic things. I learned how fun, but also how hard gastronomy is, and to cope with instability, financial instability, staff-related in gastronomy. It's not so easy to find good people. Emotional instability. Yeah, I mean, I was coming from my PhD, and I think most of you here today also, maybe you're just doing your PhD or started or even doing your master thesis. It's also up and downs, I know that, but here with this project, it was a complete other level of ups and downs because we didn't have any security network or stuff like this when you are not hired. Yeah, you just have to see month by month or week by week what is coming. And especially with things like Corona, you really. So now I really cherish the safety I have with my contract. Yeah, with this, I'm coming to my last position. So now I am currently working as a scientific coordinator at Charité Universitätsmedizin Berlin. At the moment, this is also a 50% E13 position. It's at the moment third-party funded, so my contract is now limited until 2026. But my boss plans it to be a permanent position. She wants somebody who's there long-term. So I'm pretty sure I will be able to, how do you say, unlimit my contract to have an unlimited permanent position after 2026. There's also, so at the moment I'm still at 50% because, yeah, I just sold the bar, so we sold it in August, but there were still a lot of things to do afterwards, and also I have to breathe a little. So at the moment I'm still at 50%, but there are a lot of options to expand that. I mean, I'm partner of Charité, which is a huge clinicum and university. So there are four campi in Berlin, and a lot of opportunities to do more stuff. Either expand exactly that position to a 100% position, or maybe to find another project, like do a 50-50 thing, or yeah, whatever. I feel at the moment that I really enjoy the safe base at the moment, and now I have potential there to expand in the future. And at Charité, it is very common to internally apply, and internal applications are, yeah, you can see there very often. So yeah, I'm very happy there at the moment. I also really enjoy being back in the research area. My position is, so I'm directly docked to a research group. The research group of Professor Chiara Romagnani, who is also director of the Institute of Medical Immunology since 2023. So she just started to also have this new responsibilities, and I am there mainly to support my boss in administrative and project management tasks. You can imagine that, so the Charité is huge. Administration there can be a bit tricky. So it's good that you have somebody, or it's really, my job makes sense in a way that you really need time to, yeah, to communicate with all the different administrative offices there. And yeah, that's a big part of my job. We were just moving now the lab. Chiara is at Charité since 2023, but the lab from her old institute just moved end of 2024. So I was, were my first tasks, helping a lot with moving the lab, grants and contracts from the old institute. In general, I'm there to coordinate research funding, also hiring and personal contracts. Coordinating research project. I'm not doing that so much at the moment, but this will start from now on after everything is settled at the new institute. And I'm also already coordinating a graduate school. That's how Simon found me. I'm the coordinator of the ZIBI graduate school, which is like an umbrella graduate school. We have several sub-programs as members, and Chiara is chairing this at the moment, so I am coordinating the grad school. And yeah, one thing I also do a lot is writing reports to the funding agencies, which you have to do regularly when you get all kind of funds, third-party fundings. And what was also in my job description that didn't really happen so far, but I'm also there to support in the preparation of scientific publications. And maybe to give you a more concrete overview, this is my last slide now. I wanted to tell you what I really do from day to day. So I collected what I did last week. I coordinated our weekly online seminar in immunology. I created a job advertisement. We want to hire a new assistant for the institute. And I created this advertisement and coordinated with the Charité HR to upload this, and what we need, what else we need to prepare, and getting to know the regulations, how we hire at Charité, which is very much streamlined process, but you have to know it, and Chiara is also still new here, so that took some time. I worked on a report for a funding, so for a Leibniz project, which Chiara chaired. And I am also at the moment organizing a retreat for our graduate school, which will happen in March, and had a meeting with the Orga team last week. That was it. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open for questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Svenja. We do have a few questions in the F&A already. So there is one very general question. I would just want to take this one myself, I think. You can also say whatever you think is currently the situation for biologists and generally in the life sciences. So Nicole is writing that she will finish her thesis soon, her master thesis, I guess, and she doesn't know if she wants to start a PhD or if she might find not a job after. So currently, if you read the news, it's not so well going in Germany in general, but that doesn't mean that there's no job offers currently. What I like to say to people generally in those meetings, don't be shy with the job offers and the profiles that companies are looking for. You do not need to fix 100% into any of these, but we do have upcoming seminars that will also cover this. You can also check our YouTube channel. I will just put a few links in the chat afterwards, because I think this is a very far question and is probably out of proportion to answer this in properly, also in enough details, I think. All right, one very good question, I think, Svenja, is because some people, you know, they get part-time jobs, but then in the end, they end up working more than the 20 hours in your case. How is it for you? Do you have a lot of overtime, or do you really stick to your 20 hours a week?
Yeah, I am able to stick pretty much to that 20 hours. Also at Stifterverband, so these the questions also in the direction how much it is. So it was always 20 hours now, and also for Stifterverband. And in both positions, I managed actually pretty much to stay in this working hours. However, it was never really stable. So there were weeks where I did much more when we had events or stuff like this. Or now that we moved, the time before Christmas was really a lot. But I am allowed to then fire up my Überstunden to not, also, yeah, to take that time later, free. And so Charité also has and also actually at Stifterverband, we have a time tracking tool. So you put in your hours every day and it's summed up, and then you see if you have overtime or not. And yeah, and I think so in both positions. I mean, now I don't have really colleagues who work part-time at the moment. All the others are full-time or 65% PhD students, where of course the situation is different. But at Stifterverband, I had colleagues working part-time and they were doing overtime. So yeah, I always think that it has to be the two of you. So when you yourself commit yourself to do more, yeah, then sometimes it's your own fault. Sometimes, of course, yeah, you cannot do much or you're forced by your boss, but I never felt that. So I just acted like this and it was no problem. Yeah. And what really helps, of course, is when I mean, now I have a child, so I'm telling everybody, Peter closes at 3, so I'm out. And that's okay. What I really had to adapt to at the beginning was that my boss, she was not really asking for it, but the position, or you can do your job better when you also commit yourself to work flexibly. So what I, at the beginning, was very reluctant, and I think that's also okay when you start a new job, you have to see what is like, yeah, to set your boundaries at the beginning. But I pretty fast learned that my boss is she's very okay when I say I have to leave earlier today or I don't have childcare today, and she has no problem with that. And she never really asked for it, but she often writes emails during the weekend or at night. And so now I committed myself to use the flexibility during daytime, and I'm able to leave earlier or to come and call in that I'm just working from home office today because something went wrong with childcare or stuff like this. And on the counterpart, I now have no problem anymore to check my mails once before I go to bed. And sometimes I can just, give any information, and that really helps speeding up some processes. So yeah, at the moment, I'm very happy with this. So I'm working very flexibly. Sometimes I am checking my mails during holiday. It is never really, I'm not forced to do it, but it helps a lot of things. And I'm in the counterpart really cherishing that I have this big flexibility on the other hand. And yeah, sometimes I had 1 week where I really was just checking mails every day and not doing much more. And that was also fine. So maybe that was a good answer on this.
I think it answers the question quite well, because I would like also, to highlight the statement that it also depends a bit, not only on the position, but on yourself. I mean, it's very good if you're very flexible. I'm on 28 hours a week. And, there's weeks where I just want to finish on a Friday afternoon and I want to finish this. And I need to tell my wife, say, hey, sorry, I need an hour more. Most of the time it's about me. And, if you're part-time and not every day, then there's sometimes, maybe a gap day on a Monday or something. So this, I think, makes it in this field more challenging to, set your own boundaries. Compared, how much time did you work when you were self-employed? Another person wants to know.
Yeah.
Can you even guess, or is it now all,
The German word for self-employed is selbstständig. So you're working on your own and all the time. Selbst und ständig.
Selbst und ständig.
Yeah. And that really was it. I mean, it was, I of course had my fixed hours, my shifts and preparation time, which was every week the same. And I really much enjoyed on this part that I had this fixed hours. So we had our fixed opening times, 6 weeks, 6 nights per week. And then I had one day during the day where I did cleaning and the drink deliverer and all these kind of things. So this schedule was very fixed. But of course, everything around this, all the administration, this was all the time. And yeah, this really also was one big point where in the end we decided we cannot do this anymore. These are all hours that are adding up. And then also many things we hadn't planned before, like the tax audit, applying for Corona help. Now we are still busy with that because we have to, it is a back and forth communication at the moment about the Corona helps. So we need to still send them a lot of receipts and stuff like this. And this is really annoying and this is really taking up so much time. So yeah, we tried to, so we sold our bar. We were lucky that we found guys who wanted to buy the bar from us. I don't know the English word, Ablöse. So you pay some money when you take over a running business. You pay the previous owner. It was a rental place, so we paid rent. It was not our own property, but you pay the previous owner some money that you take over the business. And you always have the risk that in the end you don't find another person who want to take over. And then when you are not able to find somebody before your rental contract ends, then you don't get any money back for this. But we managed, and what we, like the price we got was double the price that we paid at the beginning. So at least in the end, we got some money out of it. And we tried to, that was a moment where we sat down and tried to sum up all the hours we worked and tried to make the calculation. What was the wage per hour we earned? Yeah.
Yeah, but then you would know how many hours you worked, so you can, you know.
Yeah. But
okay, let's put it like this. Was it more than 40 hours a week?
Very often, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
It was also a lot of fun time, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Just one quick question. Which area did you do your PhD in?
In immune oncology. So, I mean, I knew I wanted to go back to research after the bar. I also knew I didn't want to do really research, like I didn't want to do a postdoc. I wanted to bring my administrative skills into that. So I decided to become or to look for a coordination job. And I was settling myself to just be open for all different kind of areas. And then I was very lucky to find something right in immunology. So yeah, it was immune oncology.
Okay, and where did you find your positions, both at Stifterverband and Charité?
Yeah, both via job portals. I think Stifterverband was Indeed, and Charité, I think I found on Stepstone. I cannot remember. I just searched all the common platforms.
So there was not a, not within your network or something. All right.
But I actually also wanted to include that in the presentation. I forgot. I noticed that now, like the second time I looked for a job, it was much faster that I found this position. For Stifterverband, I had, I think, I don't know, 5 to 8 interviews, something like this. I think I had 5 interviews and 8 2 were online. So yeah, almost between 5 and 10 interviews. And for this position, I wrote 2 applications, and this was my only interview, and they took me right away. And I don't know exactly why, but my guesses are that if you have some experience and you're just a bit later in your career, it just gets easier. That's what I took out of it. I mean, yeah. Of course, there's also always, you have to be lucky to find something, but yeah, it was like that this time.
All right, and then 2 more questions, I think. One, if we stick to the coordination job, for some more time. Lena is saying, thank you, Svenja, really nice talk. Also, your last slide helped a lot. And she's wondering if you're still working with science content-wise, or do you need your background from your PhD still in your work today? I mean, you said you're doing a lot of reporting. I guess it helps if you report to your grant, I mean, to your money givers, that you actually understand the content. But so content-wise, how many percentages would you guess is like real scientific work, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. At the moment, it's not so much scientific work, I have to say. But I mean, I also showed you that part of my job description was to also support in writing publications and stuff like this. For the reporting so far, I'm very closely coordinating with my boss because, yeah, I just started and I don't know so much. So I have to ask her all the time a lot of things because I just wasn't there when all this happened, when the projects happened in the past. But of course, it helps to, so it definitely helps to know the field, the research field, to know how this world works and how research works. And really, content-wise, I would say at the moment, there was no occasion where I thought, okay, for this now, I had to be a trained biologist. And like all the time, I know it helps to be a researcher. I also saw the questions, do you need a PhD to coordinate? I don't even know if you need this, if you are not hired without, maybe, yeah, but it really helps. So when you were working on a research project, your own, that really helps in understanding everything. Yeah.
All right. And one quick answer to the end. If you have the opportunity to reopen the bar, will you do it?
Not now. I really have to chill now. But yeah, I mean, I also have to admit, I catch myself then that my brain starts wandering again when I'm sitting at my very safe working desk at the moment where I have my boss and, you know, everything is safe. I enjoy it so much, but I already had the moments where it came to me. I know now why I wanted to do this in the past, because being your own boss is really, yeah, it's also really great. So I enjoyed it very much. I definitely want to raise my child first, maybe have another one. Let's see. But yeah, maybe in the future. Like my sister and we are already planning, maybe at some point we do this cafe, this Oma cafe, when we are later in our careers at the end, maybe.
All right, Svenja, thanks a lot. I think we will continue with Elisabeth's talk now, and then we will have more questions answered in the very end. So
I turned my microphone on now.
Yeah.
Svenja, I wanted to just make a comment too. My daughter is also self-employed, and I think it's so great to be brave and to do it, because you'll never ask yourself, right? Otherwise, if you didn't do it, you'd always be asking yourself, what would have happened had I done it, right? So you did it. You knew what happened. You have your story now. And you don't know where that's going to take you. But I think that's really brave and really cool that you actually followed that dream just after your PhD as well. So, and also, how small is the world? I met Chiara in January this year at a conference that I had a small part in organizing, and I met Chiara. She's great. So tell her I said hello.
I will do.
That's what we do here at the Life Science Association, connecting people and stuff.
Yeah, networking. That's right. I tell you, well, that's I mean, that's not even a joke. That's really, really, really true. Which I will see. So should I share my screen now? Is this the time to start this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth. I've been a coordinator, a studies coordinator, and a graduate program coordinator now in different and sort of mosaic positions for about 12 years now. So I've been doing it for some time. I'd like to give you a little bit of, as Svenja did, a little bit of background about myself, a little bit of a profile about the history of the profession of coordinator, if you want to call it that, or the role of coordinator, and also talk about qualifications that I have brought, that I have learned, and things that you might find valuable also if you're looking to do a kind of a coordinator job. So I would like to start with a kind of a disclaimer, as with Svenja as well. My path was certainly not straight, and I kind of call it my domino career, because it was sort of like taking the hand that I had and trying to put something together that made sense and something that I was willing to do, or something that was an opportunity at a time. I have to say, in retrospect, I've learned a lot, but in the beginning, it wasn't a line, or it wasn't something that I was trying to pursue constructively. A lot of things just happened in my career. I'm sure that some of you can relate to that already, but I don't want to give you the impression that this was something that I planned all along. It wasn't the case, but I've been really lucky to have different opportunities. Also using skills and talents that I've acquired along the way, that's also definitely comes into play, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But to give you just a little bit of background on myself, I'm a US American. I was born in Hawaii. My parents were, my father was in the military, so we moved around. When I was a child, we moved around quite a bit. We were in Connecticut, in Wisconsin. My father, later in his career, moved to kind of a diplomatic position in London. And that was the time when I became old enough to go to the university, to college. And I went for 1 year to Munich. There was at that time a branch of the American University of Maryland. It was set up for military dependents and for soldiers. I was there for a year, and during that time, I met my now husband. We have a long history, so that wasn't the end of our relationship, or how it started. It was the start, but there was a lot of development between then. I went, after that 1 year in Munich, I went back to the United States to finish my bachelor at Bryn Mawr College, which is a women's college near Philadelphia. And then after I was finished there, then I went back to Munich again, and that's where I landed. So I've been in Munich now for most of my adult life. And you'll see that I'm kind of an older adult at this point too. This is also is a little bit different certainly from Svenja, and probably from many of you that are watching today. So I was born in 1964. I came to Munich in 1986, so that's when I finished my bachelor's in the United States. My bachelor's was in German, and I did a minor in fine arts. So nothing to do with biology, nothing to do with science in any way. During that time, when I first moved to Munich, I got a job at the Max Planck Institute. Not really doing too much, not as a scientist, but I was doing things in the lab. They wanted somebody who could speak good English and could help them organize symposia and do things also with publications. At that time, it wasn't so common that people, or at least people in Germany, were coming with a strong background in the English language. And so that's how I got my foot in the door. And the reason why I was, so my husband and I did a lot of mountain climbing, and these first 4 years was basically, maybe not extreme if you think of Reinhold Messner or something like that, but we did some serious mountain climbing in Europe. And the big climax was an expedition that we did to Alaska, to Denali, which is the highest mountain in North America. So I didn't make it to the top. Well, we could call that the story of my life, but I came pretty darn close, and it was an amazing experience. We also did all the organization ourselves, so this is something that really made a strong impression and really formed my my early adult life during this time. In 1990, I decided to stay in Germany. My husband and I decided to my now husband decided to get married, and I decided to go back to school. That's the American way of saying going back to the university, because I decided I wanted to study biology. I had this naive idea that it would just take me 4 years and I'd be done, just invest the time, do it, and then see what happens after that. I was pretty sure that I didn't want to do fine arts. I had looked into that, continuing in that, and I was sure that I didn't want to do that. So I started on this journey with biology at the LMU Munich. At that time, there was no master's program. Everything was in German. I also almost simultaneously became pregnant. So the whole time that I was studying was also accompanied with having small children. So it was in a foreign language. My major respect to all of you who are doing your research and studying in a language that's not your native tongue. I can speak German, and it was still very difficult for me to get through it, but I did. So I got my diploma in 2000. So you'll see, 10 years. It took me 10 years. I took some parental leave during that time as well, but it took me a really long time, and I was wiped. I just wanted to get finished. I didn't know what I was going to do afterwards, but I just wanted to get finished. And then the lab that I did my thesis in, my diploma thesis, I really loved it. I got along very well with my supervisor, and he offered me to stay on and do a PhD or do a Doktorat at the LMU. At that time, my children were already in kindergarten and in school. And so this was somehow easier for me to get started. And that's when sort of my science career started to feel like really me being a scientist. I loved it. I did electron microscopy. My PhD was in botany and cell biology. So I'm a biologist. I managed to finish in due time. So it took me 4 years, which was pretty normal, at least in Munich for a doctoral degree. As you can, if you do the math, I was 40 at the time. So what do you do when you're 40 and have your PhD? I had the opportunity to stay on. So I stayed kind of in this comfort zone in that lab. I did research and teaching. My boss and I published well together. So it was a win-win situation for both of us. And I used the time that I had there sort of, I don't know, Svenja, if you remember too, or maybe even Simon, somehow when you're in these positions, especially in these sort of postdoctoral positions, it's sort of like the hope never dies that maybe you'll be the one, that gets the job to stay on. Every once in a while you have somebody who gets really lucky and they get some kind of maybe a non-professorial position in teaching or something like that, and they get these permanent positions. And I don't know, I had this naive idea that maybe that would happen to me too. I really liked what I was doing. And because I liked it, and because I had the opportunity to do this, I also did my so-called habilitation, which basically qualifies me to supervise students and to become a professor. It's not, anyway, it's a qualification. And during that time, this will become a little bit more relevant later, I also was interested in getting involved in university self-governance. So there were elected officials in the departments, in the Department of Biology in the LMU, for this so-called Mittelbau, so these post-degree positions that are so I was elected the Mittelbauvertreter, the representative of these postdoctoral, the post-degree positions, and I spent 2 years in the department governance as well. After which time, in 2012, I hit the academic wall. So naivete didn't help at all. I had done what I could to stay on. I had done all the qualifications that I could do. And this was the end of the road for me. As many of you know, in Germany, after a certain amount of time, so it's, and I don't want to tell you anything wrong, but for me, it was after 12, wait a minute, is that true? 12 years, because I had 2 children at the time. So I got extra years because of the children. I couldn't be continued on a fixed time position, a fixed position, a time fixed position. And so basically I was going to be on the street, or I had to look for something else. And while I was looking for something else at this time, within the university, and this is also a lesson learned, I'm going to insert this here, somebody that I knew from department governance knew that there was this weird position that it was really hard to fill. It was a 50% position, and it was looking for someone in a qualification stage, preferably someone who had a PhD, but like how many PhDs are gonna, and still in their qualification stage and have the time to take on a 50% additional position. Anyway, the shoe fit, and it was a kind of an emergency exit for me. Maybe exit is not the right word for that, but it was an emergency. I didn't have anything else to do. I wanted to continue working, and so I took this job. And that was really that, I don't know, let's say it wasn't my choice. It wasn't my favorite. It wouldn't have been my choice. I'm not even sure that I would have applied for this had I seen it, but it was really a door opener. So second lesson learned, other than, making connections and meeting people and taking on different functions and different roles in that you can, if you're able to do that in your current positions, is just try it. Just if you need something, then it might not be the answer for the rest of your life, but it is worth it to really just give it a try. If the shoe fits, go for it, even if it's just a short-term situation. Perhaps it will help you take the next step up to your other positions. And basically, if you look at where I crashed at the wall, and starting with that position as a studies coordinator for the new master's program at the LMU, at the Faculty of Biology, all of these positions afterwards have been third-party funded positions. So basically, I've been working for 25 years in academics on fixed-term positions. At this point, so if you do the math, I'm 60, I just turned 60. So at this point, I don't care. Give me another contract for 4 years. I'm going to be 64. That's fine with me. But for coordinators that are in their 30s, in their 40s, this is actually something, it's one of the disadvantages about the coordinator position. Although I'm not saying that all coordinator positions are fixed term. Svenja gave the example that hers has high potential for becoming a non-fixed position, a permanent position. But I would say that the majority, at least starting term positions, are fixed term. Okay, but that's how it all got started. And so since 2012, I've been a studies coordinator for a short time, and then these IRTG, what does that mean? Integrated research training groups. So within research consortia that are funded by the DFG, I have taken on graduate program coordination. And you can see I worked with 2 at one time. So there were 50% positions. I always worked for 2. So I had 100% position working for 2 different consortia. So at the same time, so down here, this is my timeline. This is that I just explained. At the same time, approximately, there was changes going on, reforms going in the German education system, or the European education system. So in 1999, there was this famous Bologna process, which resulted in, and this is, I'm using the Ludwig-Maximilians-Universität, so the University of Munich, as an example, after which time it took several years, but there were the bachelor's program developed, the master's program developed, and then later on there was a bachelor's reform. So the Bologna process introduced bachelor's and master's in Europe. It set new standards for European university education. It harmonized the different regulations between different universities and what the degrees mean, what the bachelor's degrees mean, what does a master's degree mean. It created some international mobility, a lot of international mobility, which meant you have to, in order for to have an international program, you also have to be able to speak English. That was the main language. It doesn't mean that you don't have to speak German. German is still very helpful, but the English language became the more important language at this time. And certainly for someone like me, as a native speaker, it became a major advantage for me in all the things that I did afterwards. And basically the Bologna process was creating a unified European educational region. So with this structural change of education came also a change in job roles. So it used to be, or at least the time when I was doing my diploma, the educators, the professors, the postdocs that were doing the teaching, they were the ones that were doing the administration themselves. And this kind of coordination on the side never worked really well, but it definitely didn't work well when you're getting into this more administratively intense, harmonized, transcript-oriented degrees than like the bachelor's and master's. So coordination positions were created. And at the same time, so we're talking about studies coordination until now. At the same time, the same thing was happening with graduate schools. So around 2005, again, this is using the greater Munich area as an example, the IMPRIS graduate school. So IMPRIS is the International Max Planck Research School. The one in Munich for biology and medicine started in 2025. It was in Munich, the very first one, followed very shortly by the Graduate School for Neurosciences, a graduate center. So it was like an umbrella structure for graduate studies at the LMU. You developed the Helmholtz Center, excuse me, the Helmholtz Center also started its own graduate school, and then the different faculties that I'm aware of. This was more of an intense development in the natural sciences, not so much in humanities. I can say that for sure. But in the Faculty of Biology, the Life Science Munich Graduate School started, the Munich Medical Research School in the Faculty of Medicine, and the now it's called QMB, so the Quantitative Biology Munich. I think that's the name of the I think I didn't get that right, but anyway, that's with the Faculty of Chemistry. So a similar development was happening with the graduate schools as well. And this meant also that coordinator positions were coming up in order to take care of these graduate schools, and then later graduate programs. So what do I have? The standards for, yeah, right. So there's also creating standards for the doctoral degrees, trying to integrate innovation. So it's all about excellence and diversity, but you also want to have really high standards. You want to have quality control. You want the doctoral degree that you get in the Faculty of Biology to be equivalent to the one that you get in the Faculty of Medicine. That sounds crazy because it's all the same university, but every faculty has its different regulations. So there's a lot of quality control potential involved. And to have comparable degrees then also not only within the university, but with other universities as well. So a role is emerging here, right? Somebody has to do all this stuff. And the cool thing is that as this was emerging, coordinators could also form their roles pretty much, or had definitely a role in forming these roles as well. And when I got into a graduate program, so I don't coordinate a graduate school, there's a little bit of a difference there, but these programs that are third-party funded, there were in the Munich area, only in natural sciences, 26 programs. And each of these programs had at least one coordinator, okay? So perhaps some of them had full-time coordinators, some of them had several, but most of them had a 50% coordinator that was hired in order to take care of the administration and the program, let's say, promotion and development, right? So we're actually developing, we have an idea, you've applied, the consortium applies to the DFG with this huge grant idea, and in order to implement that, and to support the doctoral researchers that are coming in also that will be doing the work for these big highfalutin research ideas, we need somebody to take care of the program that's going to give them the right training. And that's where I came into it. So I mentioned being able to form the role, to be able to become the coordinator that you think you should be. But let's start with sort of like the basic tasks. And if you look at, and this applies to, I would venture to say this applies to both studies coordination, which is a little bit more administration oriented than the program, the graduate program coordination. But I think that these three pillars kind of apply to both. So we have basically some project management. You have an idea and you have to manage that. So you have to make sure that these things are implemented. You have quality control. So you have to evaluate at some point, you have to get feedback. How are things working? Most of the time, you also are looking always to the next grant extension, so you also have to report and you have to show that things are going well, and in order to do that, you have to do evaluations and document them. And also program development. So what do we learn when we do things, and how can we make it better? Are there things that we're missing? And I have to say that in the course of these 12 years, I mean, that's pretty long, right? But it's not 50 years, you know, or something like that. But in those 12 years, so much has happened that has sort of changed, or has put a new twist and put new elements then into the coordination. So it started with, when I first started coordinating, the big thing was data analysis, at least in the natural sciences. Everybody had identified that as, whoa, I didn't learn this in my master's degree or during my master's degree. I need to get these skills. So that was the first thing, sort of data analysis, RR, learning different computer languages and Python and stuff like that. A few years later, Corona came in, and all of a sudden the big thing was mental health, which is, you know, 10 years ago, nobody would have even considered that. I would have probably raised my eyebrows or something about somebody had mentioned that. Now usually it's a major part of a program is that there's something offered about how do you support people if they have issues with that, mental health issues, or need support, or somehow depressed or low down or something like that. This has become something really different. And now you won't be surprised. The thing that's going on right now is artificial intelligence. So how do we deal with this as graduate programs? How do we deal with these, you know, emerging technologies? How do we implement that into our programs? And we have to do this kind of on the fly. So, but this is all something that is we're constantly looking at this and trying to make ourselves better, and to figure out what do the doctoral researchers need that are in our programs. So I guess let me just quickly go into these different pillars. So on program management, this has to do with recruitment. How do we get the doctoral researchers? So recruitment calls, that means that the new people have to get some kind of an orientation. We make information available to everyone, documentation that's also made available to everyone. Transcripts is not so much a thing in graduate programs, more so in the master's programs. And but that's something to keep in mind, or that's part of the idea of documentation, certificates, transcripts, and things like that. One of my major jobs is maintaining the website and developing the website. I'm not a web person, but I'm definitely a content management person, user person. But this is a big part of my job, because it also represents also a way of communicating our science and our program to the outside world. So quality control, obviously evaluation, so doing surveys, talking to people, different forms of feedback, or collecting different forms of feedback, maintaining contact with alumni. This is also a good way to get feedback. So how is it out now? You know, did it really help you, the things that we did in the IRTG when you were a PhD? Does it help you now? Did anything happen? What was the result of it when you went into the a different field of science? Archiving is a big deal. We amend policies, we have to do reports, we have to write grant proposals. And one big thing, and this is getting back to that networking that Simon was mentioning, is peer exchange. And peer exchange, of course, has to do with the doctoral researchers amongst themselves. But what I meant more here is among the coordinators. So I have learned so much from this wonderful network of coordinators here in Munich, which is now, you know, going to Berlin. Hi, Svenja. You know, this is something that we learn so much from each other. It's such a great strength to be able to meet. We have regular meetings, and to be able to meet and say, this is a problem that I have, or this is a challenge that I have, or this is something that's in our program, our grant application, and I don't really know how to implement it. And to hear how other coordinators have solved these kind of situations, it's just a tremendous resource, and something that should not be, I just can't emphasize it more, is that it's something really important, and has become something very useful in my job, for sure. So with program development, also internationalization outreach is a big thing. Sometimes research marketing, that doesn't come in too much into play anymore, but with some of the bigger programs, there is research marketing, which means going to fairs and you know, saying, okay, here's our program, here's here's Germany, here's Munich, here's the LMU, and advertising for the scientific positions that are, or the opportunities that are there. Career orientation is also a big thing. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, but it's actually something that I like to offer my members as well, as different formats for career orientation. And the big one is networking and team building. And here I would venture to say this probably would be, if I had to make this slide, I probably should remake this slide, because a fourth pillar is having to do with collaborative culture. Like, I think it's become very clear to me that a coordinator in a whole consortium does more than just take care of the doctoral researchers. It's basically the basis for a whole culture. That can make and break a consortium, is how people work together. And the IRTG or the graduate programs are definitely contribute to that and make the whole consortium more successful. So it's added value for everyone. I in my non-objective opinion, but I really truly believe that, and that's something that I really stand behind. So I'm doing something sort of similar that Svenja did. I just want to maybe describe to you a day in the life of my program coordination day. It has to do with basically collecting and disseminating information, a lot of organization. Sometimes I'm approached, and this is also something that experience also helps, is that I definitely have a role as an advocate. And if doctoral researchers recognize that, and if they have confidence in me, then sometimes they come to me if they need advice or guidance. So I do a little bit of guidance counseling, not because I've ever done a counseling, any kind of qualification, but just out of experience, people come to me. And so that is a part of my job sometimes as well. And also establishing this sort of, as I mentioned before, this collaborative culture. So what I do mostly, almost all day, is write emails. So if you gotta like emails. So I write to potential PhDs, they write to me. I try to keep in touch with the different IRTG members that we have. I try to keep in touch with our project leaders, with the PIs. I'm working on the website, so that's not writing emails, but it's definitely working on the computer. I organize a lecture series. I keep contact with the IRTG speaker, who is one of the principal investigators, and also to the consortium board. My art background sometimes comes to fruition because I still do graphic design. So I'm not a trained graphic designer, but I definitely like to make posters. So for different occasions, then I'm usually the one that's making the posters, but that's kind of a voluntary thing for my part. I find when I'm organizing workshops, I'm finding trainers, planning the workshops. They have to organize the room, the materials for the workshops, drinks and pretzels. I don't do coffee. I don't know why. That's where I sort of draw the line. Coffee I don't do, but drinks and pretzels I will organize so that people have something to eat and drink. I recruit participants, and in the end issue certificates. So that's just an example of things that I do pertaining to workshop organization. And finally, what do I have here? Peer exchange. I talked a lot about that already. So I meet regularly with my colleagues, individual advice or guidance counseling, event organization. I'll get into that in just a minute. That's something that's also really fun, and also the result of amazing collaborations with different programs. So you're not an island as a graduate program. If you can get people together and get different programs together, then also you get things that are superordinate topics like research integrity, like ethics, like sustainability, different kinds of methods. So what's going on in the topic of bioimaging or something like that? What's going on in bioinformatics? Those kind of things, if you get programs together, then you can make these superordinate events that actually are have high impact on the campus and are really fun to organize too, I think. I'm also very much involved in our consortium's grant application sections, representation, so representing the LMU, but also the consortium as well. And one of the things that there was a question before about do you still have, do you need your scientific background in order to do your job? And I would also confirm what Svenja said, that it's not necessary. So you don't need to be an immunologist if you're in an immunology consortium, but it definitely helps to be open to that and to be a little bit literate in it. So I attend the seminars. I have the luxury of time. I have the flexibility. So when we have invited speakers, I don't have to. That's not part of my job, but I like to attend the seminars. I like to see how people present themselves. I have this idea that because I'm a biologist that I'm going to understand a little bit, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I definitely do like to include myself in the scientific part as much as I can, for those different reasons. So some of the highlights that I get to do are I mentioned representation. So my boss was involved in a big excellence initiative thing with the LMU, and he asked me to come along and asked me to represent the graduate programs at the LMU and to give the committee that was the evaluation committee then also a little bit of an overview. That was a great privilege, and I was able to do that because of the work that we had done together. I've done 2 trainings. So one teacher's training, it's actually a workshop to become a trainer for good scientific practice. This is something the DFG wants everybody to know about, but it's not so easy to find trainers and to find workshops on good scientific practice. So I and several of the other coordinators in the Munich community got together and we took a course, a 4-part course, and now our trainers ourselves for good scientific practice. So I can do that now myself. And I do that not only for my own program, but I also outsource I'm outsourced and can do this for other programs as well. I have different responsibilities within the SFB. Sorry, that the SFB is our consortium. For example, working with gender and diversity and other kinds of different organizational things. I'm usually approached to ask whether I would be willing to help with that kind of thing, even though it's not necessarily in my job description. One of the things that's really fun is conference organization, research marketing I mentioned before, and the big highlight are the retreats that we do. Svenja, have fun on your retreat, the one that you're planning. I've had some amazing retreats. So not only the locations, but something happens. So the retreats that the retreats that I organize are only with the doctoral researchers. The PIs don't come with us. So it really is just us, and there's something chemical that happens. It's like a catalytic reaction, and people bind together. Spending time together, talking about their science together, talking about things that are not just science-oriented, sitting around at the table, having a drink afterwards. It's just amazing. And those are very, very gratifying and very enriching events that I've been privileged to take part in and to help organize with our students. So what did I bring to the job? This is going back to me personally, looking also at my timeline again. I really like working in the academic culture. So I did hit the wall. I would have maybe picked, if I had at the time, I would have picked another role for me in academics, but I really like working in academics. So I feel like I have the sort of the best of both worlds now. I have my foot in the administrative part of it, but also still in the scientists, and I'm still working in a university atmosphere. I bring experience in academics. So I did my diploma, I did my doctorate, and I did my habilitation. And I was doing that for many years. So I have quite some experience also in the Faculty of Biology, and in the meantime now in different faculties as well. I mentioned that being a native English speaker is a strength and definitely advantage. It's not necessary, but it was an advantage for me. Experience in departmental governance at that time, that was also advantage. So knowing how things work on the administrative side also helps a lot. Good organizational skills. I like to work in teams. I well, I don't know. How do you say this? I would consider myself a creative person. That was, is a recurring motif in my life in different forms. And you wouldn't think it, but at least as a coordinator, at least I find it is also, you can find lots of ways to creatively express yourself and also creatively implement these program elements that you're supposed to be putting into it. And I find this also a creative process and very gratifying. Flexibility, I bring flexibility. So I'm at an age where I don't have small kids at home anymore. I bring flexibility into the job, but the job also offers me flexibility. So this is something that I really appreciate. Sometimes I come into work at 10 in the morning, but then I stay until 6 or 7, depending on what's going on during the day. I do work full time. I try to make sure that I'm working my 40 hours a week for sure. 40 hours is generally enough. So it's not like I'm constantly working overtime. But I can really flex my hours in order to fit what's good for me. And at least in my case, but this also, I don't think you can generalize this, but in my case, there's nobody checking up on me all the time. It's really my responsibility and then also my freedom. And this is something that, think about Barack Obama. I have also this kind of naive, positive attitude, like this can-do attitude. And that's also kind of a recurring motif that goes through my life as well. But it's also really helped me to say, okay, I'll try it. This sounds like something I can do, and I would like to try it. And that has also served me well. If it has sometimes proved, I've been sometimes proven to be too naive, but that's okay, right? So you can learn something about yourself, but in general, I have this kind of relatively positive attitude. So if you are wondering about what kind of qualifications you might want to be looking for or might want to achieve for yourself right now, some possibilities might be. So we talked about this already. I know several coordinators that don't have a doctoral degree. They have a master's degree, and it's totally okay. They do a great job. They run successful programs. The only thing that I would say, and this is something that I have found to be an advantage, is that I can say, been there. I know what you're feeling. This is how it was when I was doing my PhD. This is how I relate to you. So having been through the process helps, I find. And I also don't want to tell you anything wrong, but I think it doesn't matter pay-wise either. Simon, do you know that? I think that a master's graduate gets the same pay as a doctoral graduate, I think. So, but I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, but I think that that's the case. So not even financially, it's not an advantage, but.
No, because a PhD is not an academic certificate. So that the highest academic certificate you can reach is a master degree. So that's why usually payment is E13.
Yeah, for the TFL. And I have to say that I've been working now so long on that I'm way above. I'm above E13 now, but that's unusual. So I get paid E14 now, but that's because I've been working for 25 years, right, in these fixed term positions. So just keep that in mind. That's highly unusual, and there are maybe some positions, but there would be more in the academic positions that would be getting that kind of pay. So something that you might think about if you have the opportunity is that there are scientific management trainings. The ones that I'm aware of are quite expensive. But I know of coordinators that when they were in a coordination position, the consortium paid for that person to go on to these scientific management training programs. But if you do have the opportunity, if you see something, I don't know, sometimes maybe at the job center, they might have something like scientific management training. This is something that I would jump on because this gives you something really substantial for your CV. And it also includes things that are a lot more on the administrative, the financial side as well. That's something I didn't mention before. You will not see financial stuff in my job description, because there's always been other people to do that. So I don't have anything to do with the budgets, except for I know how much money I have and I have to make sure that I stay within that budget, but I don't have much to do at all with the finances. That's for me an advantage, but that is different for different kinds of coordination jobs. Time management training is definitely something that you, as a master's student or as a doctoral researcher, you're going to run into. So a lot of times there are workshops that are about project management and about time management. Jump on those. Those are also super useful for whatever you're going to do afterwards. But in a role like a coordination role where you're actually doing a lot of organization, putting projects and programs into implementing projects and programs, this is something that's very useful and would be something that would be to your advantage on your CV. English language is an important thing. I think all of you listening today are good in English, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to that also, but just in general, communication skills are important. I also know coordinators who do not speak very good German. This also works for some coordinator jobs, not for all coordinator jobs, but in general, I would say the English language is more important than the German language in this case. Social media was not a big thing for me, but it's becoming a big thing. And I think you need to be a little bit at least open for social media. So I've learned to use social media and I've learned to use it for our programs. But if you have a little bit of background, which probably most of you do at this point, you're not 60 years old and you're probably all digital natives, the social media is something that's also going to help you as well. Familiarize yourself while you can with institutional structures and with institutional resources. Know how things work. So how does the university finance their doctoral positions, if they do at all? What is the DFG? How does that work? How does the German research system work as well? That will also be to your advantage in a coordination position. And as I mentioned before, participate in university committees or self-government bodies. This is always a good sign for, or it's a good experience, a learning experience, but it also shows leadership signs that people want to see when they're looking for a coordinator, somebody who works with leadership skills and relatively independently. So just quickly toward the end, I hope I'm not going too much over time, but the advantages and disadvantages, I would say an advantage is it's a really cool job. I really love it. And it's multifaceted. So some things are not so exciting. Some things are really exciting. And some things are just like, oh, wow, super fun, super gratifying, super high impact. And I really love that. It's relatively creative, and in my case, it's free. So I'm making the decisions. I'm not my own boss. I'm definitely not my own boss, but I definitely am free to make my own decisions and to structure my day. I love the context with students and researchers. You're building and being part of networks. And this is also for somebody who likes to work with teams like me. This is also something really super. And I like the higher goals in academics. Pursuit of knowledge. Now, that in industry, it's also the pursuit of knowledge, right? But there are maybe different motivations behind or whatever. I like this sort of noble idea of pursuing knowledge in academics as well. What are the disadvantages? There's, just to name a few, most of the coordination positions all of the coordination positions that I've been in and many that I know of are fixed term contracts. They're mostly part-time. There's variable appreciation. So sometimes what I mean by that is that these graduate programs are kind of mandatory in order for a consortium to get money, right? So some PIs think of it as just sort of like this, this sort of limb on the side that's not so super important, and they don't support their doctoral researchers in participating in the program. And that is kind of a bummer if you put a lot of effort into making a good program. I'm finding this to be less and less the case because good graduate programs have become best practice standards. So it's not something unusual anymore, and it's something that people, even if they don't expect it, they appreciate being able to use it as a resource, and that includes the PIs in most cases. And another disadvantage is that I think it's pretty much an exit ramp for research. So it's not an exit ramp for academics, but if you want to if you're thinking about maybe going back into research, then you're really stepping out. Although Svenja just told you something totally different. She stepped out and then stepped back into a coordination position. But I don't know, Svenja, perhaps you would agree with me that if you wanted to go back into the lab, or if you wanted to work as a postdoc someplace, this would be a little bit different situation. Although I definitely am more of a champion for not worrying too much about what the normal paths are. I think everybody has to look at their own individual skills, talents, timelines, life stories, and work with that, and not necessarily what everyone else expects. And we'll end with just a quick outlook. Programs come and go, as I told you. 26 of those programs were there when I started. Many of those are already finished. Many new ones have also been approved. So it's a very dynamic field. That means that there are going to be coordinator positions coming on the market constantly, on and off. Coordinated programs are successful. They've become the best practice standards. Support for early career research is expanding also to medical researchers and postdocs, which means more programs and more coordinators. And that brings me to the only question, maybe more isn't better. Maybe there has to be new forms of synergy for coordination in the future, and we'll see where that goes. For example, some place where I work in an institution where there are several programs. Perhaps it would make sense to have one or two coordinators for all these different programs instead of having 5 coordinators for 5 programs. That's just an idea, but it's pie in the sky at this point. That's just an idea but let's say I would venture to say that, as similarly to how coordination has changed since when I started my PhD, so from the early 2000s, I think that it's going to be an evolving field or an evolving role, and it will be exciting to see what happens with it as well. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope I didn't go too much over time, and I'm happy to take questions.
Wow, thank you, Elizabeth. Really nice talk. I think not only your personal journey was really well shown, but also what the job brings, what the job offers. And I think that was really, really well done. We do have a lot of questions already, but I just want to say a few things also, because I liked a few things a lot. So you said, writing emails. If I look at my job, it's different, but it's also very similar to what you described. When I first started this, I had a job before, and I realized, having an office job, writing emails and being on the phone, I really like that, because you're doing a PhD, you're at university, you have those ideas how your work should be. You're usually a lab rat, basically. I loved working in the lab, don't get me wrong, but the outside world, it's so far away sometimes, and not being in the lab, not doing research, it's so hard to imagine for a lot of people. So I really liked that thing, because I made the same experience, that I realized, okay, communicating with people, that's what I really like most, and I don't care about the form. So that was really that was really nice. And another thing, because Svenja also said, it's not the normal route, and you just use the expression again. So from my experience in those webinars, all the people, they come here and they say like, oh yeah, this is, maybe not representative because, I did this and this and that and here and there. And I think that's what we want to show here also, building your career path it's not all coming from your brain. Sometimes life just happens and it brings you into a situation where you need to react. And, you can close a door, you can open a door. It's your choosing. And I think you also showed that really, really well. Okay, so this was just 2 things I wanted to comment on, because I think that a lot of the people that are coming to our webinars, they always have this feeling that they need to prepare for everything, and you know, sometimes it's not so easy. All right, jumping to the questions.
Can I just very shortly add something, because there was one question I decided to not answer directly.
Yeah, please.
And this kind of adds to what you just said. What was an advantage of being a mom? For example, which skills did you gain from childcare, from Annika?
Yeah, I like that also.
This is a bit what you'd also just said. It's like life happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, the three of us, we are all parents now. So I think you can also say that it's like that. You don't know what's coming when you with your first child, right? You are constantly overwhelmed at the beginning, and so yeah, you react and you find solutions. And I think that's a skill that yeah, I think also mostly the people who are listening, who are studied natural sciences, learned. So problem solving and yeah,
resilience.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's maybe also something the PhD helps a lot, like
that's true. Yeah,
the skill of resilience.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that comment. It was really, I think it fits well. Okay, Raymond is asking, what is the advantage of having a PhD if both masters and PhD start at E13? I mean, in research coordinator field, Elizabeth said that, you know, you wouldn't say that a PhD is necessary, but I guess it's not only about payment. Can you say maybe a few?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't do the PhD because I wanted to get paid more. I did the PhD because I honestly wanted, there was a lot more involved in my decision. So it was accepting the challenge. It was continuing some research that I wanted to do. And it's definitely, I mean, even if it's not recognized, and let's just be clear, this page different, or this pay level is only with public service, right? So only if you're working within the public service. If you're going into industry, it does make a difference. So they're looking, and sometimes they don't even consider you unless you have a PhD as well. But I would say that the PhD, making the decision to do a PhD doesn't only have to do with your pay level. So it has to do with growing. It has to do with, I mean, honestly, I maybe not pay level, but when I did it, it was because I knew that that was required for the next step, which would be becoming a postdoc or becoming a professor at the time. That's what I was thinking. Those were the channels in which I was thinking at the time. But I was thinking, okay, if there's going to be somebody to be the boss, I want to be it. And that's kind of also, that was let's say the general career decision that I was making about doing a PhD, but it didn't only have to do with salary levels.
Yeah.
And because Annika added to that question, the other question, if you start at least at another stage then, and that's true. So the time that you work on E13 doing your PhD is counted then later. So I also started now at stage 3 at least.
3. Okay, yeah, great.
Yeah, Annika also raised another good question to you, Elizabeth. How challenging is it to stay on top of things in a constantly changing field?
It's challenging, but it's also fun. And it's not my job to be on top of things all the time. So what do I mean by that? Again, it's coming back to teamwork. So I'm part of a consortium, and the consortium works together. And that's also part of keeping my fingers on the pulse. That's why I go to seminars. That's why I like to, I go to annual meetings. When I talk to the PhD students, I'm also interested in what is moving them, what's interests them, what's interesting in the field at the time. I attend symposia if I'm the one, like I did with Chiara then in Seefeld this year. I help organize, and so I listen to the talk. So it's just part of the, I would say, the content, playing the game, but content part of the job. And it's not all on me, right? So this is all part of this big teamwork, and by the time it gets to me, it's already been digested a little bit, certainly by other people. But it makes my job actually very, very interesting, very interesting.
So does it also nourish your scientific thirst a bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and the different topics that it also has to do with societal topics. I mentioned mental health as well. Also, my little digression out into good scientific practice, research integrity. Those are things that you know, things that we value, that also we try to implement into the programs, and that's something where I can also make a difference. So this is also very gratifying and constructive.
Thank you. So because I read a lot of the questions about language and German language in specific, so this may not be, you know, just a question for you as a research coordinator, but also for you as a US American who came to Germany. So a lot of the people in the room still, you know, wonder how important is the German language in Germany to find a job, and maybe also from your experience in giving career advice to your people in the programs, can you maybe say a few sentences to this? I would love to hear that.
So if you're at the beginning of your qualification period right now, whether you're a master's student or a PhD student, if you don't speak German, really consider taking a German course. Not because you are sure that you want to get a job as a coordinator or you want to get a job, but if you're even thinking about staying in Germany, it really makes sense to at least have some basics. So it has to do with integration into the society. It has to do with all that kind of stuff. But at the very latest, and this has happened to so many, unfortunately, really, I have about 75% in my programs, 75% non-Germans. So not all of them, some of them speak German, but most of them don't. Most of them don't speak German. And it happens so often that somebody will, you know, they're here, they decided they want to stay in Germany, they want to get a job in Germany. It's at least Munich and then probably Berlin as well is just an amazing area for biotech, pharmaceuticals, bio-related things as well. And the big hindrance is German. So if you're wanting to go outside of academia, so if you stay as a coordinator, if you stay in academia as a postdoc or whatever, but if you're thinking of going outside of academia, then you need some German skills. You may not need to be fluent. And I do know of some people that that are not fluent and they've still gotten really good jobs. But I would say if you're working in Germany, learn German. Doesn't look good if you don't speak any German at all, if you're looking for a job on the market in Germany. Does that help? I don't know. That's still kind of vague. And
no, it does.
But it hurts. It really hurts me in the end when students, after 5 years of living in Germany, doing a great job on their PhD, and they think at the very end, they think, oh man, I should have learned some German. I should have at least gotten at least to the B, you know, the B level or something like in German. And it's kind of a shame, but then there are other opportunities, right? So then you can still, after you're finished with your PhD, you can still take German courses. There are things available, but I would say that this is a mandatory skill. You don't have to be fluent, but you should know a little bit of German, you know, and certainly in my job, it's not mandatory, but I talk to the janitors. Sometimes I make phone calls and I have to talk to caterers. Most people speak a little bit of English, but it helps that I can speak German, or at least to get my foot in the door with the German as well.
And usually HR at universities, huh?
Yeah, that's true. So, and even the people, HR, they're pretty good, at least in our institutes, but the forms, like the forms are still in German language. And of course, this is something that can be solved, and it is solved, and there are solutions for that, but you're always confronted with a kind of a language barrier if you don't know any at all. So
yeah, thanks. I think that was a very good answer. There was one more question about your basically German background, if your husband was German, or who guided you through this very different system. Did you say that you did a bachelor in German?
Yeah, I did. I got a bachelor in German language but the reason why is because I knew I wanted to go back to Germany. So it was just sort of like, I didn't know what else to do. So I studied German. But yes, I did know German when I came to Germany. I was not fluent. It's been a journey learning German and living in Germany, but I, in general, and I think many of you who are listening who are living in a foreign country can relate to that. I've gotten used to that. That's my life. You know, I live in a foreign country. I speak a foreign language, but Germany has become my home now. So that I'm always confronted with this idea, you know, what does it mean to be American living in Germany? What does it mean? You know, this is something that's also accompanied my life as well. But my husband is German. He has been able to help me through all of the administration, language. I didn't ever have to go through visa. In the beginning, I had to go through visa stuff a little bit, or at least residency permits. Once I got married, that was all finished. But my husband didn't go to university, so all this academic stuff was me. I had to navigate that myself. So.
Okay, thanks. All right, Alicia is asking if she was once again, I think she was missing this. If you were asking, if you were hoping to become a professor one day, that was your dream basically when you started your academic career. Okay.
Well, it wasn't when I first started, so I didn't start the PhD thinking, oh, I want to be a professor. But at some point it became to me like, oh, I maybe could do this, especially when I got the habilitation. And but what I would have really liked to do is stay in a position, and I don't know what it's called in English. I called it a postdoc, but it would be this Mittelbau. That's what I'm looking for. I don't know if there's a good, so you have your PhD already, you're working in research in the lab, you're teaching, but you're not a professor. You're one of those like pillars in the lab, the people that when a new student starts or a doctoral researcher starts, like they come to you with questions and stuff like that. So you're one of the pillars, and I would have liked to be a pillar. If I had a professor title in front of it, that would have been fine. But in retrospect, I'm glad I didn't become a professor. I never would have. I don't have the skill sets for professor. I don't have you saw, I have a very unusual, vita for an academic person. I would have been 52 by the time I could have become a professor. That never happens. Like, that's too old. That's honestly too old to become a professor in the German university system. So, but at least that was the track I was thinking. So realizing that I wouldn't get to the peak, thinking about Denali, but that I would find a really good spot before the peak. And in the German system, those kind of positions are super rare. And that was what I was hoping for, is that I would be there at the right time, right place, and get one of those super rare positions. And it didn't happen. So.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for adding this, because this would I was going to ask, like, so it was just basically by chance you didn't hit the right time to be at the right position. I guess. Because within those 12 years that you have starting your PhD until you find this position, and due to age, if you're becoming a professor is out of the question also. So this is very rare. Yeah. Okay. I hope that who was it that asked that? I hope you got rid of it. I hope that has answered the question, but you even answered one more question in the go. Okay. Okay. There's a lot of thanks also for your brilliant presentation. Okay, maybe this one. I'm currently in my 3rd PhD year and expecting my first child in August. Do you have any tips? Svenja. Be brave. Don't try to just, you might have to change gears, but keep going. So say it again, which year? 3rd year of the PhD. Yeah. And let's assume, I'm assuming that this person's PhD, I'm assuming it's a woman or the person carrying the child, and I'm assuming that the PhD is going to take another year or so. I don't know, but it's an anonymous. Yeah. person that's asking that question.
Anyway, but be brave, do what you need to take care of yourself and take care of your child. And don't assume that you won't be able to do both your PhD and the taking care of the child. Don't assume that. I don't know what your situation is. At least in our program, there was a lot of support for situations like that when researchers have children. So if you're in a position where you might get some extra support, that would be good. Well, worth looking into. Otherwise, take some time off, but come back, finish. That's what I would recommend to you.
That's a good one. I think she's writing yes and yes. So
okay.
She's probably,
the woman carrying the child and yeah. Okay.
I want to recommend, because we had a webinar on this topic. It is in German. I'm not sure if you can understand, but there's a webinar about this on our YouTube channel. The link to our channel is in the chat already.
I wanted to add on that also.
Yeah, please.
I would also say keep your head up and also take your time and also see what happens to you. I mean, sometimes perspectives just change, like this is a whole new role in your life. Just see what how you want to continue in 1 year or more or less time. But yeah, I also very much enjoyed coming back, and there my tip would be really take care or look at your social network and your familiar network. And yeah, I also don't know in what situation you are, but yeah, I don't know. I still experienced some fights that I had to fight in my partnership, you know, grandparents of my partner and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it still is challenging sometimes for women, but yeah, if you want to do this, then engage everybody around you. They are also responsible and they should help.
Thank you, Svenja. I actually just found the video actually and put it in the chat directly. Also, it's Laura and two former colleagues, Laura and Marion. They both did their PhD in the same lab as I did, and Marion actually got her first son, I think, during her PhD before finishing. So this might be
exactly right on spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, a good recording to look at. Okay, what do we have? Yeah, Elizabeth, have you ever applied for grants to continue your research, own grants?
I did, but during the time when I was working as a postdoc. So I did apply for my own grants. I had a grant, a 2-year grant that was extended to 4 years. I don't know. So it wasn't a solution for me to keep going after I hit the academic wall. It wouldn't have worked because I wouldn't have, oh, no, that's not true. That would have worked. I know people that don't have, they need lab space. So you need to carve your space then in the university that sponsors you. But if you bring in your own money, then that's possible. But at the time, it was not an option for me. And that was, I think, I can say, if I'm thinking back properly, it wasn't because it wasn't possible. It was because emotionally, I didn't want to go there. So I was done. I was pretty done. So.
All right. Okay, there's only 4 questions open. There's again a lot of thanks for the inspiring talks and the great lectures. Okay, there's one about language again. I think this is going the same direction as before. As a foreign PhD candidate in the middle, I have an opportunity to participate in a German-speaking conference. I'm preparing to present my poster in German, despite the fact of capability to make it in English. What is your comment on this, please? Try.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, definitely do it. That's don't don't assume that it's not a good idea. Yeah, it sounds like an opportunity. So definitely do it, even if it's not. If I don't know if it's your native language or not, but definitely do it. And that's, people have always reinforced me in my efforts. Also, so I give sometimes these talks also in German. My German's pretty good, but it's not perfect, and I'm a little bit self-conscious about that. So, but people always reinforce me and say, no, it doesn't matter, Elizabeth, just do it. Just go ahead, and it's part of your personality. It's part of it's part of being you. And in this case, especially if it's going to be a post or something that you're in print, then you also have nice possibilities to check that and to make sure that it's grammatically correct. But otherwise, even if it's imperfect, it's a great opportunity. Go for it.
And also the people, they would, know how to speak English also. If there's always help around the corner.
Absolutely.
So, Elizabeth, one more question to you. There's also thanks in the beginning. And then is there a point in your life or in your CV where in retrospect, you would rather have taken a different turn? And if so, where and why? Tricky questions.
Yeah, I would have to think about that. But if you can still visualize the timeline that I showed you and where I hit the academic wall after I got my habilitation, I did apply for a professorship here in Munich, and it was a terrible experience. It was a terrible experience. It was partially because I had my hopes up, and even though I really didn't have, realistically, I didn't really have a good chance at all of getting it. But in retrospect, I think I put myself through some pain that if somebody had taken me aside and said, Elizabeth, this isn't going to happen, don't do this, don't put yourself through this, then I probably should have listened to somebody who did that, or I might have done. But having said that, when you make mistakes, when you go through, the gauntlet of fire, the ring of fire, you grow, right? So you learn something, you grow. And also, if I hadn't done that, then I probably wouldn't have sidestepped into coordination at the time. So you never know what something's going to bring you, but you can't, retrospect and hindsight is something really good to have, and you can learn from that too, but you can't make career decisions, or you can't make decisions being sort of fearful of what might happen, or it might be a bad decision, or it might be whatever. You have to kind of be brave and look at the options and try to make, good decisions and step forward, but always with the understanding that you might be making a mistake. So.
Yeah. Okay, one more question, because the participant is very insistent on this one. I thought you answered the question already before without, becoming a professor with 52. So the person is saying, thanks for sharing so much information. Please don't get me wrong. Have you ever faced limitations due to your age during the journey? If so, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, the only obvious limitation was that professorship deal that, at 52, I was too old to become a professor. I've had people that were surprised about my age, but in general, how can I say this? I've always been this kind of exotic thing. So I was always older than everyone. I was from a different country. I was US American. I've always had this sort of different profile, and my age was just a part of it. I never experienced discrimination with age. Honestly, I would say, yes, I experienced discrimination at being a woman at certain points in my career. With age, not so much. It wasn't obvious. And yeah, in fact, even with the coordination, so Svenja, if I look at Svenja, look at her age, she's probably, as a coordinator for a program, she's going to be a peer, like a buddy to her people. I have that more maternal thing. So I'm the coordinator mom. I mean, I don't mean that in any way a diminutive thing, but it's a kind of a role that I take on a little bit because of my age. But when I'm on retreat, for example, with the doctoral researchers, they're very appreciative. They take me in, they include me in things or something like that. So I've never felt discriminated because of my age or that it was a disadvantage. And the same thing with perhaps even with the project leaders, with the PIs in the consortium. I'm the same age as them or older, right? So I don't have, there's not an obvious, I'm also kind of on a peer level with them as well, which is also, I very much appreciate and also is a good tool to have or a good thing to have in this kind of a, yeah, for networking and for the consortium business.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you. I think both your career paths are wonderful and how you showed them, it was really beautiful. Thanks also, Raymond, for he's saying thank you for organizing. I really also do love that job. And yeah, thanks a lot. The three of us, we meet in the backstage again. And to all of you that are still in the room, thanks a lot for staying until the end. Hope to see you soon. Check out our YouTube channel for more videos and recordings, and also master-bio.de, where you find our program or the upcoming webinars if you're not already registered for the newsletter. All right, then have a nice evening. See you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.